Born and raised in Hakka, Myanmar, growing up, Joshua Van's mom would have to ride a bike 3 hours to work to take care of him and his four sisters while his dad was working in Malaysia. His two older sisters would make clothes and sell them to make money. Being the only boy, Van always thought that he'd become a preacher because his mom promised God that. But his family left Myanmar due to a civil war, so they moved to Malaysia where his dad was, and a refugee to Houston. But as soon as he came to the US, his life would change and go down the wrong path. He got to Houston, Texas at the age of 12 and got bullied a lot for not knowing English. In the 6th grade, he went to Aliff Middle School where he would get into a lot of fights. His first day of school, they called him Chino, and he thought it was a compliment because back in his country, the Chinese were rich. And when he came back to tell his cousin, Van's cousin would tell him that they were insulting him. Van would go back to school the next day and would fight whoever disrespected him. He would get into so many fights that his parents would move him to Spring Branch Middle School, which was worse for him because there were less Asian kids, so the bullying got worse, and he would fight almost every single day. He would watch fighting videos on YouTube and try it out at the gas station or corner store. Van got kicked out of Spring Branch Middle School and would go to Cypress Creek High School and also get kicked out for fighting. In 2017, at the age of 15, Van's father sadly passed away. He got into so much trouble in Houston to the point where he couldn't stay anymore, so he had to move to Iowa where his aunt and uncle lived. He would stay there for a year, but he would still get into fights and get kicked out of school. But it wasn't until one day where he was fighting at the park and he was beating up a guy who trained, and his friends recommended that he should try MMA. A couple of days later, he got into another fight, and when he came back home with bruises, his aunt sat him down and asked him, "Do you think you're a real man?" Van replied yes, and his aunt told him, "Any man can fight on the street, but a real man fights for his country and his family and fights in a cage or ring like Manny Pacquiao." And that really stuck with Van that night. He couldn't sleep, he just kept thinking about it. And the next day he told his aunt if he can tell his mom that he wanted to go back to Houston and start training. The first gym that he went to was Precision MMA, which wasn't like a real gym, it was more like a family gym. It wasn't until he met Scott Juarez.
That's when I met a guy named Scotty Juarez. Like, he beat the shit out of me in sparring. And then I tried to do the same move that he got me with. And then he was like, "Hey, man, I'm opening a gym next door." And then so I talked to my old coach. And then that's when 2020, that's when I start, like, taking it serious.
And from there, he would stop fighting on the streets for good. Van would fight out of Sons of Silverback's gym and would go 4-0 as an amateur. He had won the Fury Amateur Series Championship under the promotion Fury FC.
What?
Van would make his pro debut against Tony Esquiel, winning by TKO in the second round. In his next fight against Chase Eastham, he would beat him by ground and pound in the second round.
I don't know how much more that's it. Yeah, I was going to say, there's not much more Chase can take here. It was non-stop punches. Joshua Thong now goes to 2-0, an impressive display.
In his third pro fight, he would suffer his first loss against Devon Jackson by rear naked choke.
Deep working there. Devon Jackson has time here. Takes about 8 seconds if you're not tired to choke someone unconscious from that rear naked choke. If you are tired, it's 4 to 6 seconds.
Josh heard that. Final clap for 10 seconds, and he taps. Wow. With about 2 seconds left in round.
But he would go on a 4-fight winning streak by all finishes, beating Francisco Urbano in the first round.
First fight of the prelims live on Facebook, and a nice breakout exchange.
Joshua Van, big punch right there up against the cage, and that's it.
Man, it was actually a jab. He threw a combination, and it was the jab that did the most.
Knocking out Angelo Trujillo with the head kick.
And guillotine. He's taking a little bit of punishment here now. Nice body shot there from Joshua Van. Big head kick.
That's it.
And getting his first submission win against Mario Sazo by calf slicer.
See, it looks like Josh is setting up an anaconda choke. He elects to take the back. I mean, he's going for a calf crush.
Oh, look at
He's
this.
gonna hit this.
Oh, he's got that. That's very, very tight.
And it's the tap.
Yeah, beautiful submission from Joshua Van.
Van was just a striker with decent grappling and wanted to elevate his game and joined 4-Ounce Fight Club. And on the first day, they made him work so hard that he literally quit and left the class early before it ended. But he stayed and kept working hard with Daniel Pineda, a former UFC fighter, head coach, and owner of 4 Ounce. In Van's next fight, he would beat Paris Moran by TKO in the second round.
Dropped him. Paris is rocked. Paris is rocked.
Oh, Josh Van!
Josh, and he's all over him.
Is this going to be enough to finish the fight? Josh Van is alive! Josh Van with the win!
His 4-fight win streak got him a shot at the Fury FC flyweight title against Cleveland McLean, and would win the belt with a second-round standing rear naked choke.
Joshua Van, the fearless one! That right arm is deep!
Under now, too.
And this is choking him the whole time this is in here.
I think
He's
we're gonna
fighting
see a
it.
tap. I think we're going to see a tap here. I mean, that's deep. That's under, palm to palm.
Oh, this is going to be it! Josh Van for the 125 title, and he gets it! Josh Van with the...
Van was supposed to make his debut on Dana White's Contender Series in late August, but he got the call in June for a short notice opportunity. In his UFC debut against Zahiga Salamigulov, who was 1-5 in the UFC, Van won by split decision. In his second fight in the UFC, he went up against Kevin Borjas and won by unanimous decision. In 2024, Van was one of the most active fighters on the roster, fighting 4 times. He would get his first finish in the UFC in the second round by ground and pound against Felipe Bunes.
Yeah, he hurt him to the body.
Several times. Josh Van starting to unload, and he knocks him.
Just got to be careful of the arm bar, but this is it.
Goodness, that'll do it. Joshua Van, a winner again.
Van was on a 3-fight winning streak in the UFC, but in his next fight against Charles Johnson, he would suffer his first loss, getting caught with an uppercut in the 3rd round and losing by KO. In his 4th fight in the UFC, he went up against Edgar Chairez in the Sphere at UFC 306 Noche UFC. He popped both of his knees before that fight.
When I got the short notice, I popped my knee because I was back to training as hard as I can, so I popped my right knee. And then the day of the fight, in the morning when we did the little shakeout, I popped my left knee. So yeah, going into that fight, you know what I mean, it was hard for me to check the leg kick and stuff like that. We knew that's exactly what he was going to do too, so it was hard for me to check them leg kick.
And still outstruck Chairez and won by decision. In Van's 5th fight, he fought against Cody Durden, a wrestler, and was ranked at the time. Van put up a boxing clinic, throwing 165 strikes and beating Durden by unanimous decision. After beating Cody Durden, Van was still not ranked, so his next opponent was going to be Bruno Silva, but he pulled out due to an injury. And Rei Saruya, a young Japanese prospect with great wrestling, would step in. Van went out there and stuffed 17 takedowns and landed 127 strikes and won by unanimous decision. Van finally got to fight Bruno Silva at UFC 316 and put on another boxing clinic, stuffed 5 out of 6 takedowns, and got his second finish in the UFC with a 3rd round TKO.
That one hurt. He's hurt bad.
Silva takes a seat. Down the road for the oncoming force, Joshua Van.
The next day, while surprising his mother with a new house that he bought her, Van got the call from the UFC, and they told him that Manel Kape was going to be out due to a foot injury, and he can step in on short notice to fight the #1 contender Brandon Royval at UFC 317. In just his 9th fight in the UFC, Joshua Van was already fighting for a title shot. Van and Royval put on an amazing war for the fans in a close fight, both of them swinging on the feet, and both surpassing 200 significant strikes. It was 1-1 going into the last round, and Van would hit Royval with the right hook that dropped him to secure the win, and both fighters won fight of the night. And the fight was so good that even Dana White gave Royval his win money as well.
Another record too. So the other thing, I'm gonna pay Royval his win money. He took that fight with the number 12 ranked guy on short notice and put on an absolute war. So
This fight also broke the record for the most significant strikes landed in a 3-round UFC fight and in the flyweight division. Van and Royval combined to land 419 significant strikes. Van got to sit front row to watch Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France for the flyweight strap, and the winner would face Van next. Pantoja would go on to submit Kai Kara-France by rear naked choke in the 3rd round, and Pantoja and Van would face off in the middle of the cage to confirm that this will be the next fight. Joshua Van, at just 23 years old, has accomplished so much in his UFC career. He's on a 5-fight winning streak, He's breaking records, and now is just one win away from becoming the flyweight champion. Do you think he beats Pantoja, or do you think he will become champ in the future? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section.